Imagine building a food company in India in tropical heat with a product that expires in 5 days. No preservatives, no chemicals, no shelf life. Now imagine that company being worth 4,500 crore rupees. That's not a business plan. That sounds like a suicide note. But PC Mustafa and his cousins started with 50,000 rupees and a 50 square foot kitchen in Bangalore. Didn't just survive. They built one of India's most dangerous business moats. And the way they did it will permanently change how you think about your own business. Stay with me. This one is different. Bangalore. PC Mustafa walks into a local kirana shop and looks at the idli dosa batter being sold. It's sitting in the open, uncovered, unrefrigerated, made in unknown conditions by unknown hands with unknown ingredients. And across India, millions of families were buying this every single day. Not because they trusted it, but because they had no choice. They wanted the taste of home. They just didn't have the time to make it from scratch. Mustafa and his cousins saw two things that everyone else was walking past. First, a massive aching gap. Working mothers, busy professionals, urban families. They hadn't given up on home cooking. They were running out of time for it. Second, a massive comfortable lie. The packaged foods industry had quietly decided that convenience meant chemical preservatives and a 30-day shelf life. They had confused packaged with processed. Mustafa made a different bet. 50,000 rupees, a 50 square foot kitchen, and one simple, almost arrogant promise. What you get from us will taste exactly like what your mother made. No investor, no lab, no strategy consultant, just three principles they would never compromise. Zero preservatives, zero debt, zero shortcuts. Most people would call that inspiring. I want to tell you, it's also operationally insane. Here's why. Batter is alive. It breathes. It explodes. Idli dosa batter is not a product. It's a living organism. It ferments, it breathes, it expands. In India's heat, if it's mismanaged, it doesn't just spoil. It can literally explode inside the packaging. Every FMCG giant on the planet looked at this and said the same thing. Too risky. Add preservatives. Extend the shelf life. ID Fresh Food didn't compete in that ocean. They got out of the water entirely. Because Mustafa understood something most business leaders miss under pressure. The constraint is not the enemy. The constraint is the strategy. Zero preservatives meant they could not stockpile inventory, could not buffer for demand shocks, could not afford a single bad batch sitting unsold in a truck. So instead of removing the constraint, they engineered around it. And what they built next is one of the most elegant supply chain solutions I have ever studied. I want you to think about a cement truck. When you're building a skyscraper, you don't mix all the concrete in the factory and ship it across the city. By the time it arrives, it's a hardened, useless block. So engineers invented the ready-mix concrete truck, where the drum rotates during transit. The concrete finishes mixing while the truck is moving. It arrives at exactly the right consistency, at exactly the right moment. PC Mustafa and team looked at that concept and said, that's our entire business model. Their trucks are mobile fermentation chambers. The batter leaves the factory in a pre-fermented state. It continues to ferment under precisely monitored cold chain temperatures during transit. By the time it reaches the retail shelf, it is at its absolute peak fermentation. Not a minute too early, not a day too late. Logistics isn't a cost center for ID. Logistics is the product. They built this around the ERRC grid from Blue Ocean Strategy. 1. Eliminate. Chemical preservatives. Gone entirely. A move that would bankrupt a traditional distributor-led model. 2. Reduce. Distance to consumer. They own the last mile. No middlemen who don't understand what's at stake. 3rd. Raise. Replenishment frequency, not weekly, every 24 hours, every single store, every single day. And 4th, create trust as a service, an entirely new brand promise in Indian food. While giants were fighting for shelf space, ID was fighting for shelf velocity. That's the difference between playing someone else's game and writing your own rules. 35,000 stores, less than near zero wastage. How? Stop guessing. Completely. ID Fresh Food built what they call zip code analytics. Using Microsoft Power BI and a platform called Bizom, they track every single one of their 35,000 plus retail outlets individually. Their AI doesn't call a shopkeeper and ask, "How much do you want?" It tells the shopkeeper, "This is exactly what you will sell tomorrow." The algorithm has 8 years of historical data. It cross-references local weather because people make more dosas on a cold, cloudy morning. And it factors in regional festivals. Ganesh Chaturthi in Mumbai, idli consumption spikes, Ugadi in Bangalore, dosa sales go through the roof. Just-in-time manufacturing. At the molecular level, this isn't just inventory management, it's demand sensing. ID knows you want a dosa before you even wake up. ID Fresh Food is not a food company, it is a data science firm that happens to sell dosa batter. And that tech moat took 8 years to build. No competitor can replicate it overnight. Now, you can have the most elegant supply chain in the world. You can have AI tracking every zip code in India, but if a customer doesn't trust you, none of it matters. This is where ID did something most brands never figure out. They sold trust when the world was selling fear. Let me ask you something personal. When you buy packaged food for your family, what is the first thing you feel? Guilt, doubt, a quiet compromise. It's not like homemade, but what can I do? Every fast-moving consumer goods giant in the world has accepted that emotion. Their campaigns quietly say, almost as good as homemade. They have trained the consumer to expect less. But PC Mustafa and his cousins refuse that entire framing. Al Ries and Jack Trout, in their landmark book Positioning, argued that a brand doesn't live in the factory. It lives in the mind of the customer, and the mind has limited space. The brand that owns a single word wins. ID owns one word in the Indian consumer's mind: fresh. Not convenient, not affordable, not Indian. Fresh. Every decision, zero preservatives, 24-hour replenishment, honest labels, reinforce that single word. Most companies communicate what they do, then how. Great brands start with why. ID's why was never, "We sell better." Their why was, "Every Indian family deserves the taste of home," without compromise. In 2016, they did something that made no commercial sense. They set up ID Trust shops, unsupervised vending machines, placed in residential complexes and corporate parks across the city. No cashier, no security camera, no one watching. Just ID products, a price board, and a box for payment. The message was not a marketing message. It was a human one. We trust you. We are not watching. We believe you will do the right thing. When a brand trusts you first, you don't just buy their product. You enter into a relationship. But ID Fresh Food team knew that trust built in the supply chain still had to be felt in the living room. So they did something most fast-moving consumer brands are too afraid to do. They stopped talking about their product entirely. ID Fresh Food understood it well before. It had a name, that the customer is the hero and the brand is the guide. Every campaign they ran put the customer at the center. Their product was, always, the quiet reason the moment was possible. Look at the campaigns. 2 words. This campaign was not about food, it was about care, about the thread that runs through every Indian household where a mother's love arrives as a meal. ID positioned their batter not as a convenience product, but as the vehicle for that love to travel from the kitchen to the table, even on the most impossible mornings. Their love mixed with ours. Perhaps the most sophisticated campaign in their history. It collapsed the distance between the mother's hand and the brand's product. Their love, our batter, one dosa, it wasn't a product feature. It was a declaration that ID was not replacing the mother's role. It was honoring it, amplifying it, making her love reach further. Meet Your Neighbor. In an era of apartment walls and earphones and food delivery, ID made a radical bet. They asked urban Indians to share a meal with the person next door. It positioned their product not as a transaction between a consumer and a brand, but as a bridge between 2 human beings who had forgotten each other. Ideal women, not superwoman, not a stereotype, just a real, whole, respected Indian woman who is both the keeper of tradition and the driver of modern life. ID looked at their primary consumer, the working woman navigating home and career, and said, "We see you, we built this for you, and we are proud of you." That is not a brand message, that is a relationship. By connecting traditional Indian food habits with the modern sentiments of love, family, and social responsibility, ID built something no preservative could ever create: a loyal consumer base that felt understood. Are you solving your customers' problem, or quietly telling them that their life is easier without them? Read that again. Are you solving their problem, or quietly telling them their life is easier without them? Most brands, if they are brutally honest, are in the second camp. They are selling a replacement, a shortcut, a surrender. PC Mustafa and team didn't sell a product. They sold the belief that you could still have the taste of home without compromising your time, your values, or your self-respect. That is not a product, that is a philosophy. And that philosophy is why the word ID has become synonymous with a single word in Indian households: trust. Trust is the only business mode that cannot be bought, cannot be acquired, cannot be reverse engineered overnight. It has to be earned every single batch, every single delivery, every single day. Here is how they chose who to sell to. Here is the decision that most founders get completely wrong. They believe that scale means selling to everyone. ID Fresh Food did the exact opposite. When your entire brand promise is built on freshness, your retail partner becomes part of your product. A store without refrigeration doesn't just fail to sell your batter, it actively destroys your brand when a customer opens a spoiled packet. So ID made a brutal, counterintuitive call. They trimmed their retailer base to just to limited numbers of around 5,000 stores of available outlets. Only stores with proper cold chain infrastructure. Only shops with genuine commitment to quality. Only partners who understood what was at stake. They applied the same discipline to geography. Rather than going wide across 50 cities, they went deep into a few. The result? In organized market, 95% market share in Mumbai. 70% market share in Bangalore, growing footholds in Chennai, Hyderabad, Kolkata, and beyond. Still, the brand's household penetration across India is less than 3%. Their target was never someone who had given up on cooking. It was someone who loved home cooking, but was losing the time to do it. Someone for whom the dosa wasn't just breakfast, it was identity, memory, Sunday morning with the family. In business, you don't need to own the whole world. You just need to own the premium standard. 3% penetration of ID Fresh Food represents the top-tier urban consumers who drive 80% of digital-first consumption in India. They didn't sell convenience to their consumers. They enabled home. The supply chain moat keeps competitors out. The AI engine keeps wastage down. Campaigns are what kept customers in, emotionally, culturally, loyally. 3 layers of moat, each one invisible to a competitor looking only at the product. One built in the factory, one built in the algorithm, one built in the heart. And investors noticed. PC Mustafa and his cousin started with 50,000 rupees and a philosophy of zero debt. They never borrowed their way to growth. ID Fresh Food earned it. One pack of batter at a time, one trusted retailer at a time, one honest label at a time. ID Fresh Food is today valued at approximately 4,500 crore rupees. They attracted investments from Azim Premji of 150 crore rupees in 2017 and recently 1,500 crore rupees in investment from Apex Partners in 2025. These investments are the testament of purity, honesty of ID Fresh Food. Now they don't just sell in Bangalore and Mumbai anymore. They sell in Dubai, the United States, the United Kingdom, to the Indian diaspora who grew up with that smell, that sound, that feeling of Sunday morning at home, wherever in the world home now is. They didn't just scale a business, they scaled trust across borders, across time zones, across generations. So here is what I want you to carry with you from this story. ID Fresh Food had no business surviving. Their product expires in 5 days. Their supply chain is an operational nightmare. They refused every chemical shortcut their competitors were taking. And yet, they won. Because they built everything around one question. They never stopped asking themselves, are we solving our customers' problem? Or quietly telling them their life is easier without them? That question is the difference between a brand that replaces people and a brand that empowers them. So here is my question for you, the founder, the leader, the builder watching this. Is your brand replacing your customer or empowering them? Because if you cannot answer that clearly, confidently, without hesitation, you are still in the red ocean, fighting for shelf space in someone else's game. What is the one moat your business is building right now?